in the quiet village of Luminara, where the night sky stretches endlessly above the rolling hills, a young astronomer named Lyra stumbles upon something extraordinary. While examining a meteorite fragment, she notices strange, intricate patterns etched into its surface patterns that seem to form a map. But this isn't just any map. It's a guide to a journey foretold in ancient myths, a voyage that promises to unravel secrets hidden among the stars. What begins as a simple discovery soon becomes the key to unlocking a destiny far greater than Lyra could have imagined. The stars themselves seem to call to her, their whispers growing louder with each passing night. What she doesn't yet realize is that her curiosity is about to awaken something ancient, something powerful, and her life will never be the same. Lyra's fingers trembled as she traced the delicate lines of the meteorite's surface, her lantern casting flickering shadows across the parchment where she meticulously copied the patterns. Night after night, she pored over the star map, her eyes darting between the heavens and the cryptic symbols before her. The villagers whispered about her, their worried glances following her as she wandered through Luminara with ink-stained hands and a distant gaze. Her family pleaded with her to rest, to eat, to return to the life she'd once known, but Lyra couldn't tear herself away. The map was calling to her, its secrets just out of reach, and she was determined to answer. One crisp evening, as the stars burned brighter than ever, Lyra finally made a breakthrough. The patterns aligned with a constellation she'd never noticed before, a cluster of stars that seemed to shift and pulse when she focused on them. It was Orion's belt, but not as she knew it. This version was twisted, as though the stars themselves had been rearranged. Her heart raced as she realized this was no ordinary constellation. It was tied to an ancient myth, one her grandmother had whispered about long ago, a tale of a celestial gatekeeper who once guarded the pathways between worlds. But as Lyra's excitement grew, so did her unease. Strange lights began to flicker in the sky, far brighter than any star or planet. They moved in ways that defied logic, darting and swirling in patterns that mirrored the map's design. At first, she dismissed them as tricks of her tired mind, but soon even the villagers began to notice. The lights grew bolder, closer, and with them came a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very earth. Lyra's family begged her to stop, fearing she was stirring forces beyond their understanding. Yet, for all their warnings, she couldn't turn back. The map had chosen her, and the stars were waiting. The morning sun had barely risen when Lyra set out for the edge of the village, clutching the meteorite fragment tightly in her satchel. Her destination was the home of Orion, an old scholar who lived in seclusion, his reputation as a keeper of ancient knowledge both revered and feared. The path to his cottage wound through dense woods, the air thick with the scent of pine, and the distant calls of unseen creatures. As she approached the sight of his home, a weathered stone structure draped in ivy sent a shiver down her spine. This was the man who had once studied the stars so deeply that the villagers said he could hear their secrets. And now, Lyra needed his wisdom more than ever. Orion greeted her with a wary expression, his sharp eyes narrowing as he studied the meteorite she presented. "You've been meddling with forces you don't understand, child," he said, his voice low and gravelly, like the rumble of distant thunder. He spoke of the celestial gatekeeper, warning her that the stars were not merely lights in the sky, but ancient beings with wills of their own. To disturb their balance, he cautioned, was to risk awakening something far greater and far more dangerous than she could imagine. His words hung heavy in the air, but Lyra's resolve didn't waver. She met his gaze, her voice steady as she pleaded for his help. If the stars are calling me, then I must answer. I can't turn away, not now. For a long moment, Orion studied her, the weight of his years etched into every line of his face. Then, with a slow nod, he agreed to assist her. Together, they pored over the map, Orion's weathered hands tracing the patterns with a reverence that spoke of lifetimes spent deciphering the cosmos. He pointed to a cluster of symbols near the edge of the map, symbols that matched the twisted constellation Lyra had discovered. The Whispering Mountains, he murmured, his voice tinged with both awe and unease. According to the map, a portal lay hidden deep within those peaks, a gateway said to bridge the realms of the mortal and the celestial, but reaching it would be no simple task. The mountains were treacherous, their paths shrouded in mist and myth, and the journey would test her in ways she couldn't yet fathom. As the days turned to nights, Lyra and Orion worked tirelessly, preparing for the expedition. Orion shared stories of those who had sought the portal before, adventurers who had vanished without a trace, their fates lost to the stars. Yet, despite his warnings, Lyra's determination only grew. She wasn't just chasing a myth, she was chasing a truth that had chosen her, a truth that felt as much a part of her as the blood in her veins. And as the first light of dawn painted the horizon, Lyra stood at the edge of the village, her satchel packed and her heart alight with purpose. The Whispering Mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks cloaked in mystery, and the stars above seemed to pulse in anticipation. The journey ahead would be perilous, but Lyra was ready. The stars had called, and she would answer, no matter the cost. The journey to the Whispering Mountains began under a sky heavy with foreboding. The air grew colder with every step, and the dense fog that clung to the peaks seemed to swallow the world whole. Lyra and Orion moved in silence, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth beneath them. The weight of the star map in Lyra's satchel felt heavier than ever, its presence a constant reminder of the stakes. Orion's warnings echoed in her mind, but so did her resolve. This was her path, and she would see it through. As they ascended higher, the landscape shifted, the trees thinning until only jagged rocks remained. The path narrowed, forcing them to tread carefully along the edge of sheer cliffs. It was here, in the most unforgiving part of the mountains, that they first sensed it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the shadows themselves. Lyra froze, her breath catching in her throat. From the mist emerged a pack of creatures unlike anything she had ever seen. Their forms were dark and shifting, as though carved from the night itself, and their glowing eyes fixed on her with an unsettling intensity. They were drawn to the map, she realized, its celestial energy pulsing like a beacon. Orion's voice broke through her panic. "Stay close," he urged, his tone steady but urgent. The creatures advanced, their movements unnervingly deliberate. Lyra's heart pounded as she fumbled for the meteorite fragment, its surface warm against her palm. She didn't know what to do, but she couldn't let fear paralyze her. Summoning every ounce of courage, she raised the fragment high, its patterns catching the faint light. To her astonishment, the creatures recoiled, their forms flickering as though threatened by the map's energy. Seizing the moment, Lyra shouted, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The creatures hesitated, then retreated into the shadows, their growls fading into the distance. But the victory was short-lived. Orion staggered, clutching his side. In the chaos, one of the creatures had struck him, leaving a deep gash that bled crimson against his weathered cloak. Lyra rushed to his side, her hands trembling as she tried to stem the bleeding. "I'm fine," he insisted through gritted teeth, but his pallor betrayed the truth. He was weakening, and the journey was far from over. Panic surged within her, threatening to overwhelm her. What if she couldn't protect him? What if she failed? Orion's hand gripped hers, his voice firm despite his pain. "You have the strength to go on," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "The stars chose you for a reason. Trust in that." His words struck a chord deep within her, cutting through the fear like a beam of light in the darkness. She realized then that she couldn't rely on him to guide her every step. This was her journey, and the challenges ahead would test her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. She had to trust herself. With Orion resting against a nearby rock, Lyra took a moment to steady her breathing. The weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders, but so did a newfound determination. She couldn't let fear dictate her path. The map was still calling, its secrets waiting to be uncovered, and she was the only one who could answer. As she adjusted her satchel and glanced at the path ahead, the stars above seemed to shimmer in approval. The journey wasn't over. It was only beginning, and Lyra, with her heart steeled and her resolve unshaken, was ready to face whatever lay ahead. As Lyra pressed onward, the air grew thinner, the path steeper, and the silence more profound. The whispering mountains lived up to their name, their eerie whispers echoing through the mist, as if the very rocks were alive. Every step brought her closer to the portal, its presence now undeniable, a faint, shimmering glow visible through the fog. The closer she got, the more the world seemed to shift around her, the stars above pulsing in time with her heartbeat. It was as if the cosmos were holding its breath, waiting for her to make the next move. When she finally reached the portal, it was unlike anything she could have imagined. Suspended in midair was a swirling vortex of starlight, its edges rippling like liquid silver. The patterns on the meteorite fragment in her hand glowed in response, their light dancing in harmony with the gateway. But as she approached, a realization struck her. The portal wasn't just a door, it was a test. A voice, neither male nor female, but ancient and resonant, echoed in her mind. To pass through, you must give something of yourself. The words sent a chill down her spine. A sacrifice, but what could she offer? Her thoughts turned to Orion, still injured and waiting for her return. Guilt clawed at her chest. She had left him behind, and now the portal demanded a price. The meteorite fragment, the very thing that had guided her this far, seemed the only answer. It had been her constant companion, her link to the stars. Letting it go felt like tearing a part of herself away. Yet, as she held it up to the portal, the patterns on its surface flared to life, as if acknowledging her decision. With a deep breath, she tossed it into the vortex. The moment the fragment touched the starlight, it shattered into 1,000 glittering shards, each one dissolving into the portal's glow. The gateway roared to life, its light blinding, its hum deafening. The ground beneath her feet trembled, and the air crackled with energy. Lyra stumbled back, shielding her eyes, but the pull of the portal was irresistible. It called to her, its voice now a chorus of stars, inviting her to step into the unknown. For a moment, she hesitated. The thought of Orion, alone and injured, weighed heavily on her heart. She wondered if she was making the right choice, if the stars truly had her best interests at heart. But then she remembered his words, "The stars chose you for a reason." This was her path, her destiny. She couldn't turn back now. With one last glance at the world she was leaving behind, Lyra stepped forward, her foot crossing the threshold of the portal. The sensation was indescribable. It was as if she were being pulled apart and stitched back together, her very essence unraveling and reforming. The stars swirled around her, their light wrapping her in a cocoon of warmth and wonder. She felt weightless, timeless, as though she were no longer bound by the rules of the world she had known. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation ceased. She found herself standing in a place that defied comprehension, a realm where the sky was a tapestry of colors she had no names for, where the ground shimmered like liquid gold, and where the air hummed with the music of the cosmos. The portal behind her closed with a soft sigh, leaving her alone in this strange new world, but she wasn't afraid. The stars had brought her here, and she knew, deep in her soul, that this was where she was meant to be. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Lyra felt truly free. The cosmos stretched out before her, endless and infinite, and she was ready to explore every corner of it. The stars had called, and she had answered. Now, the real adventure could begin. Lyra stood in awe, her breath caught in her throat as she took in the impossible beauty of the celestial realm. Floating islands of crystalline stone drifted lazily through the air, their surfaces shimmering with veins of starlight. Rivers of liquid silver flowed between them, cascading into waterfalls that dissolved into mist before they could touch the ground. Above, swirling nebulae painted the heavens in hues of violet, gold, and deep blue, their light casting an ethereal glow over everything. It was a world beyond imagination, a place where the laws of nature seemed to bend and twist at will. As she stepped forward, the ground beneath her feet rippled like water, though it held her weight as if it were solid. The air itself seemed alive, humming with a low, resonant tone that vibrated through her very bones. She felt both exhilarated and overwhelmed, her senses struggling to process the sheer magnitude of what she was seeing. This was no ordinary realm. It was a place of power, of creation, of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Before she could gather her thoughts, a light appeared in the distance, growing brighter with each passing moment. It moved with purpose, gliding toward her like a comet, streaking through the night sky. As it drew closer, Lyra realized it wasn't just a light. It was a being, radiant and otherworldly, its form shifting and flowing like liquid starlight. When it finally stopped before her, the light coalesced into a figure, its voice resonating in her mind rather than her ears. "Welcome, Lyra," it said, its tone warm yet commanding. "I am Solara, guardian of this realm and keeper of its secrets. You have journeyed far to reach this place, but your true test has only just begun." Lyra's heart raced as she stared at the sentient star, her mind racing to process its words. A test? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Solara's light pulsed gently, as if in acknowledgement. The star map you carried was no mere guide. It was a key, a challenge set forth by the cosmos itself. To unlock the secrets of this realm, you must prove your worth. Courage and wisdom are the tools you will need, but the trials ahead will demand more than mere strength of body or mind. They will challenge your very soul. Lyra swallowed hard, her hands trembling at her sides. She had known this journey wouldn't be easy, but the weight of Solara's words settled heavily on her shoulders. What kind of trials? She asked, her voice steadier now, though her mind was a storm of questions. Solara's form shifted, its light spreading outward to create a shimmering image before her. It showed a series of floating platforms, each one surrounded by swirling storms of light and shadow. The path ahead is divided into 3 trials, Solara explained. The first will test your courage, forcing you to confront your deepest fears. The second will challenge your wisdom, requiring you to solve riddles woven from the fabric of the cosmos. And the third will demand a sacrifice, a piece of yourself that you must willingly give to prove your devotion to the stars. Lyra's chest tightened at the mention of sacrifice, but she forced herself to nod. And if you succeed, Solara replied, its voice softening, you will gain access to the knowledge of the ancients, the secrets of creation itself. But know this, Lyra, the trials are not designed to break you. They are meant to reveal who you truly are, to forge you into the person the stars have chosen. For a moment, Lyra stood in silence, her gaze fixed on the swirling image before her. The path ahead was daunting, but she couldn't turn back now. She had come too far, sacrificed too much. The stars had called to her, and she had answered. Now it was time to prove she was worthy of their trust. Taking a deep breath, she looked up at Solara, her resolve hardening. I'm ready, she said, her voice firm despite the storm of emotions within her. Solara's light pulsed again, this time with a warmth that felt almost like encouragement. Then let the trials begin, it said, its form dissolving back into starlight as the floating platforms materialized before her. Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The first platform loomed ahead, its surface crackling with energy. She could feel the weight of the challenge pressing down on her, but she refused to let fear take hold. The stars had chosen her, and she would not let them down. With one final glance at the shimmering expanse around her, she took the first step onto the platform, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The journey was far from over. It was only beginning. Lyra stepped onto the first platform, her boots sinking slightly into the surface that shimmered like molten glass. The air around her crackled with energy, and the world seemed to warp and blur as the labyrinth of shifting sands took shape. Before her stretched an endless maze of dunes, their forms constantly changing, rising, falling, and reshaping themselves as if alive. The ground beneath her feet shifted unpredictably, pulling her in different directions, and the horizon seemed to retreat no matter how far she walked. This was no ordinary maze. It was a reflection of her own mind, a place where her fears and doubts would take tangible form. As she ventured deeper, the labyrinth began to play tricks on her. Shadows moved where there should have been none, and whispers voices she recognized but couldn't place drifted on the wind. She caught glimpses of Orion's face, pale and pained, as he lay injured on the mountainside. His voice echoed in her ears, pleading with her to turn back, to abandon this reckless quest. "You're not ready for this," the illusion seemed to say, its words cutting deeper than any blade. Guilt clawed at her chest, but she clenched her fists and pressed on, reminding herself that Orion had believed in her. He had told her to trust the stars, and she couldn't let his faith, or hers, be in vain. The labyrinth's illusions grew more intense, each one designed to shake her resolve. She saw her family, their faces etched with worry, standing at the edge of the village as she left them behind. Her mother's voice, soft and trembling, called out to her, "Why are you doing this, Lyra? What if you never come back?" The words struck a nerve, stirring doubts she had tried to bury. Was she being selfish? Was this journey worth the pain it caused those she loved? For a moment, she faltered, her steps slowing as the weight of her choices pressed down on her. But then she remembered the map, the way its patterns had called to her, the way the stars had pulsed in time with her heartbeat. This wasn't just about her. It was about something greater, something that had chosen her for a reason. She couldn't let fear paralyze her, not now. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders and spoke aloud, her voice firm despite the trembling in her hands. "I'm doing this because I have to, because the stars chose me, and I won't let them down." As her words echoed through the labyrinth, the illusions began to waver. The shifting sands stilled, if only for a moment, and a path forward appeared, clear and unwavering. It was as if the maze itself had acknowledged her resolve, rewarding her courage with a glimpse of the way out. But she knew this was only the beginning. The labyrinth wasn't just testing her ability to navigate its twists and turns. It was forcing her to confront the doubts that had always lingered in the back of her mind. She had to face them, to understand that her journey wasn't just about reaching the stars. It was about becoming the person the stars had chosen. With renewed determination, Lyra pressed forward, her steps surer now. The illusions still swirled around her, but they no longer held the same power. She understood now that her fears were part of her, but they didn't define her. They were shadows, and shadows could only exist in the presence of light, and she was determined to be that light, no matter how dark the path ahead might seem. As she neared the end of the labyrinth, the shifting sands gave way to solid ground, and the whispers faded into silence. The first trial was over, but its lessons lingered. Lyra had faced her fears and emerged stronger, her resolve unshaken. She glanced back at the maze, now still and quiet, and felt a flicker of pride. She had passed the first test, but she knew the challenges ahead would only grow greater. The stars had called her for a reason, and she was ready to prove she was worthy of their trust. With the labyrinth behind her, she turned her gaze to the horizon, where the next trial awaited. The journey was far from over, but she was no longer afraid. She was ready to face whatever came next. Lyra stepped out of the labyrinth, her breath steady and her resolve stronger than ever. The shifting sands and haunting whispers were behind her, but the air around her still hummed with tension. Solara's light flickered nearby, its glow warm and approving. "You have faced your fears, Lyra," the celestial guardian said, its voice resonating like a distant chime. "But the second trial will demand more from you." It will test not your courage, but your ability to trust, your instincts, your intuition, and the unpredictable nature of the cosmos itself. Before Lyra could respond, the ground beneath her feet dissolved, replaced by a vast, starry void. She floated weightlessly, her heart pounding as she took in the scene around her. A sprawling asteroid field stretched out before her, its jagged rocks tumbling and colliding in a chaotic dance. Among the debris, a single shard of starlight glimmered, a fragment of pure, celestial energy that seemed to pulse with life. Her task was clear: retrieve the shard and prove her worth. But the sheer scale of the challenge was staggering. The asteroids moved unpredictably, their paths impossible to predict, and the shard was nestled deep within the heart of the field. As she approached the edge of the field, the first asteroid hurtled past her, its surface jagged and menacing. She flinched, her instincts screaming at her to retreat, but she forced herself to stay still. This trial wasn't just about speed or strength. It was about understanding the chaos, about finding harmony in the disorder. She took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the field for patterns, for moments of stillness amidst the tumult. It was like trying to read the stars themselves, their movements both random and deliberate. The first step was the hardest. As she drifted into the asteroid field, the rocks seemed to close in around her, their movements quickening as if they sensed her presence. She darted and weaved, her body moving almost instinctively as she avoided collision after collision. The shard of starlight glimmered in the distance, but it felt impossibly far away. Her muscles ached, her mind raced, and the pressure of the trial threatened to overwhelm her. But then, something shifted. She began to notice subtle rhythms in the chaos. A brief pause between collisions, a faint glow that marked safe passage through the debris. It was as if the cosmos were speaking to her, its language written in light and motion. As she ventured deeper, the asteroids grew larger, their collisions more violent. One moment, she was narrowly dodging a massive rock that split into a dozen smaller fragments. The next, she was navigating a narrow gap between two spinning boulders. Each near miss sent her heart racing, but she forced herself to stay calm, to trust her instincts. The shard was close now, its light growing brighter with every passing moment. But so were the dangers. A particularly large asteroid loomed ahead, its surface cracked and unstable. As she approached, it shattered without warning, sending shards of rock hurtling in all directions. Lyra froze, her mind racing. There was no clear path, no safe way forward. But then she remembered Solara's words, "Trust the chaos." She closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting her instincts take over. When she opened them again, she moved with a newfound confidence, weaving through the debris with a grace she hadn't known she possessed. The shard was within reach now, its light warm and inviting. She stretched out her hand, her fingers brushing against its surface, just as another asteroid collided nearby, sending a shockwave through the field. The force of the impact sent her spiraling, but she held onto the shard tightly, its energy coursing through her. As the chaos around her subsided, she floated there for a moment, catching her breath. She had done it. She had retrieved the shard, not by fighting the chaos, but by embracing it. Solara's light appeared once more, its glow brighter than ever. "You have proven yourself, Lyra," the guardian said, its voice filled with pride. "You have learned to trust the cosmos, and in doing so, you have found the harmony within its chaos. Lyra's heart swelled with a mix of relief and triumph, but she knew the journey was far from over. The shard in her hand was more than just a prize. It was a reminder of the lessons she had learned, lessons that would guide her through the trials to come. As she gazed at the starlit expanse around her, she felt a deep connection to the cosmos, a sense of belonging that she had never known before. The stars had called, and she had answered. Now she was ready for whatever came next. The final trial awaited, and with it, the chance to uncover the secrets of the universe itself. The shimmering expanse of the celestial realm seemed to hold its breath as Lyra approached the final trial. The air was thick with anticipation, the stars above pulsing faintly, as if waiting to see if she could rise to this ultimate challenge. Before her stood a swirling vortex of light and shadow, its form shifting endlessly, never settling into a single shape. It was a cosmic entity, ancient and unknowable, its voice echoing through the void like the rumble of distant thunder. "You stand before me, Lyra," it intoned, its tone neither hostile nor kind, but impossibly vast. "But are you truly worthy of the knowledge you seek?" Lyra's heart pounded as the entity's gaze settled on her, its presence overwhelming. She felt as though it could see into the very depths of her soul, peeling back every layer of doubt, every moment of fear she had ever experienced. "Your journey has been marked by recklessness," it continued, its voice booming. "You left behind those who care for you, risking everything for a quest that may amount to nothing. Is this not selfishness? Is this not folly?" The words struck her like a blow, each one echoing the doubts she had tried to silence within herself. She thought of Orion, wounded and alone in the mountains, of her family's worried faces as she set out on this path. For a moment, she wavered, the weight of the entity's accusations pressing down on her, but then she straightened, her jaw tightening as she met its gaze. "I didn't choose this path lightly," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions within her. "The stars called to me, and I answered, not out of selfishness, but because I believe there's something greater at stake, something that goes beyond me, beyond anyone I've ever known." The entity's form shifted, its light flickering as if considering her words. "And what is it you seek, Lyra? What drives you to risk so much?" She hesitated, searching for the right words. "I seek understanding," she said at last, "not just of the universe, but of my place within it. The stars chose me, and I can't ignore that. This journey, it's not just about me. It's about discovering what connects us all, what binds the cosmos together. If I can uncover even a piece of that truth, then every step, every sacrifice, will have been worth it." For a long moment, the entity was silent, its form swirling and shifting as if weighing her words. Then slowly, its light softened, its voice losing its edge. "You speak with conviction, Lyra," it said, its tone now almost gentle. "Perhaps there is more to your quest than I first believed. Very well, if you are willing to face the unknown, to embrace the mysteries of the cosmos, then I shall grant you the final piece of the star map." The vortex before her began to dissolve, its light coalescing into a single, radiant fragment that floated gently into her hands. It was the last piece of the puzzle, the key to unlocking the secrets she had journeyed so far to uncover. As she held it, she felt a surge of energy, a connection to the stars that was deeper and more profound than anything she had ever known. The entity's voice echoed one last time, its words carrying a note of solemnity. Remember, Lyra, the universe does not give its secrets lightly. The path ahead will demand everything of you, but if you remain true to your purpose, the stars will guide you. With those final words, the entity dissolved into starlight, leaving Lyra alone in the vast expanse of the celestial realm. She clutched the fragment tightly, her heart swelling with a mix of triumph and trepidation. She had faced her doubts, defended her choices, and proven her worth. The final piece of the map was hers, and with it, the promise of answers she had long sought. But as she gazed at the shimmering fragment in her hands, she knew the journey was far from over. The stars had called, and she had answered. Now, it was time to see where that path would lead. The fragment of the star map glowed brightly in Lyra's hands, its light merging with the other pieces she had gathered. As the patterns aligned, a holographic image burst forth, revealing a vast expanse of the cosmos. But what she saw wasn't a map of wonder. It was a warning. At the heart of the celestial realm, a swirling void of darkness loomed, consuming stars and planets with an insatiable hunger. It was a black hole, ancient and unstoppable, its tendrils of destruction spreading faster than anyone had realized. Lyra's breath caught in her throat as the enormity of the threat sank in. This wasn't just a distant danger. It was a force that could tear apart the very fabric of the universe. Solara's voice broke through her shock, its tone grave yet steady. This is why the stars called to you, Lyra, the celestial guardian said, its light flickering with urgency. The black hole has awakened, and its hunger knows no bounds. If left unchecked, it will consume everything: the celestial realm, the mortal world, and even the stars themselves. But you are not alone in this fight. The cosmos has chosen you to unite the scattered celestial beings, to gather their strength and stand against the darkness. Lyra's mind raced as the weight of Solara's words settled over her. She had come so far, faced so many trials, and now the stakes were higher than ever. Scattered celestial beings, she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Where are they? How can I find them? Solara's form shimmered, and the holographic map shifted, revealing 3 distant points of light. Long ago, the celestial beings were guardians of the cosmos, each one embodying a different aspect of creation: light, time, and balance. But when the black hole first stirred, they retreated, their unity shattered by fear and doubt. To face this threat, you must find them and convince them to stand together once more. Only then can the darkness be driven back. The task felt overwhelming, but Lyra knew she couldn't turn away. The stars had brought her this far for a reason, and she couldn't let them down. Where do I start? She asked, her voice steadier now, her resolve hardening. The first guardian resides in the luminous expanse, Solara explained, the map zooming in on a region of swirling golden light. Orion, the keeper of light, was once the brightest of us all. But when the black hole appeared, his light dimmed, and he withdrew to the farthest reaches of the cosmos. You must find him and reignite his flame, for without light, the darkness will prevail. Lyra nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The journey ahead would be perilous, but she couldn't afford to hesitate. The fate of the cosmos rested in her hands as she stepped toward the shimmering portal that would take her to the luminous expanse. Solara's voice echoed one last time. Remember, Lyra, the stars did not choose you because you were ready. They chose you because they believed you could become ready. Trust in yourself, and you will find the strength to unite the Guardians. The portal enveloped her, its light warm and reassuring, but the weight of her mission pressed heavily on her shoulders. The luminous expanse stretched before her, a sea of golden light that shimmered like liquid fire. Somewhere in this vast, radiant ocean, Orion waited, his light hidden and his heart shrouded in doubt. Lyra took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the star map. The journey had brought her this far, but the hardest part was yet to come. She had to find Orion, awaken his light, and convince him to stand against the darkness. And she had to do it quickly, before the black hole consumed everything she had ever known. As she began her search, a faint glimmer caught her eye, a flicker of light that pulsed weakly, as if struggling to survive. Lyra's heart leapt. It had to be him. She moved toward the light, her steps quickening as the golden expanse seemed to shift and ripple around her. The closer she got, the more she could feel the weight of Orion's despair, a heavy, oppressive force that threatened to smother her own hope. But she pressed on, her determination unwavering. The stars had called her for a reason, and she wouldn't let them down, not now, not ever. The battle against the darkness had begun, and Lyra was ready to light the first spark of resistance. As Lyra stepped through the shimmering portal, the world around her transformed into a breathtaking expanse of swirling galaxies and cascading starlight. The heart of the celestial realm was unlike anything she had ever seen, a place where time seemed to stand still, and the air hummed with the energy of countless worlds. Towering before her was the Council of Stars, their forms vast and luminous, their presence commanding the very fabric of the cosmos. Each member radiated a unique brilliance, their light casting intricate patterns across the void. But beneath their awe-inspiring appearance, Lyra sensed something else, an undercurrent of complacency, a weariness that had settled into their eternal existence. The council's voices echoed as she approached, their tones deep and resonant, carrying the weight of millennia. "Why have you come, mortal?" one of them asked, their light flickering with curiosity. "The celestial realm is no place for one such as you." Lyra straightened her shoulders, her grip tightening on the star map. "I've come because the cosmos is in danger," she said, her voice steady despite the enormity of the beings before her. "The black hole grows stronger with every passing moment, and if we don't act soon, it will consume everything, even this realm." The council members exchanged glances, their light shifting in subtle ways that betrayed their unease. "The black hole is but a distant threat," another member said dismissively. "We have watched it for eons, and it has yet to reach us. Why should we risk our power for something that may never come to pass?" Lyra's heart sank at their indifference, but she refused to back down. "Because waiting will only make it stronger," she argued, her tone firm. "The black hole isn't just a threat to the mortal world. It's a threat to the balance of the cosmos itself. If we don't unite now, there may not be a cosmos left to protect." Her words hung in the air, the silence that followed thick with tension. The council members stirred, their light pulsing with conflicting emotions. One of them, a being whose form shimmered like molten gold, stepped forward. "You speak boldly, mortal," they said, their voice softer now, almost contemplative. But unity is not so easily achieved. We are beings of immense power, each with our own domain, our own priorities. To unite against a common enemy would require us to set aside centuries of rivalry, of pride. Can you truly ask that of us? Lyra met their gaze, her determination unwavering. I'm not asking you to forget your differences, she said. I'm asking you to remember what's at stake. The stars chose me to bring you together because they believe in you, in all of you. They know that, despite your rivalries, you are capable of greatness. But greatness requires sacrifice. It requires trust. The council fell silent once more, their light dimming as they considered her words. For a moment, it seemed as though they might dismiss her entirely. But then, the golden being stepped forward again, their light brightening with resolve. Perhaps you are right, they said. Perhaps it is time we set aside our pride and stood together once more. But know this, Lyra, our alliance will be fragile. Old wounds run deep, and trust is not easily rebuilt. As the other council members began to murmur their agreement, Lyra felt a surge of hope. She had done it. She had convinced them to unite. But even as the council's light began to merge, forming a radiant shield of celestial energy, she could sense the tension beneath the surface. Old rivalries simmered, their unresolved conflicts threatening to undermine their fragile alliance. The golden being turned to her, their voice low and solemn. You have brought us together, Lyra, they said, but the true test lies ahead. Can you keep us united when the darkness comes? Lyra nodded, her resolve hardening. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to let the council's fragile unity crumble. The battle against the black hole was just beginning, and she knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But as she stood among the council of stars, their combined light illuminating the void, she felt a flicker of optimism. The stars had chosen her for a reason, and she would do everything in her power to ensure their trust was not in vain. The cosmos was counting on her, and she was ready to rise to the challenge. The black hole loomed closer, its dark tendrils reaching out like a predator, closing in on its prey. The celestial realm trembled under its growing influence, the stars dimming as their light was swallowed by the void. Lyra stood at the edge of the council's gathering, her mind racing. Time was running out, and the only hope lay in a desperate plan. A barrier forged from the energy of the stars themselves. But this wasn't a simple act of creation. It demanded a sacrifice so profound that even the council hesitated. We must act now, Lyra urged, her voice cutting through the tense silence. The barrier can hold back the black hole, but it requires the essence of one of you to power it. Without this sacrifice, we lose everything. The council erupted into chaos, their luminous forms flickering with anger and fear. The golden being, Orion, stepped forward, his light dimmed by the weight of the decision. To give up our essence is to cease to exist, he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. We are not merely beings of energy, we are the guardians of creation. To lose one of us would be to lose a part of the cosmos itself. Another council member, their form shimmering like molten silver, countered sharply. And what happens if we do nothing? The black hole will consume us all. Is it not better to lose one than to lose everything? The debate grew fiercer, the air crackling with tension. Lyra watched as the council members turned on one another, their unity fracturing under the pressure. She knew she had to intervene. to remind them of what was at stake. Stepping into the center of their gathering, she raised her hands, her voice calm but firm. "This isn't about choosing who will make the sacrifice," she said. "It's about understanding why it must be done. The stars chose you to protect the cosmos, not just to exist within it. If we don't act, there will be no cosmos left to guard." Her words hung in the air, the council members falling silent as they considered her plea. Orion's light flickered, his gaze meeting hers. "You ask much of us, Lyra," he said quietly. "But perhaps you are right. The stars chose you for a reason. They saw in you the strength to unite us, even in the face of unimaginable loss." The silver being stepped forward, their light softening. "If it must be done, let it be done with purpose," they said, "but we must choose wisely. The essence we sacrifice will determine the strength of the barrier. It must be pure, untainted by doubt or fear." Lyra nodded, her heart heavy with the gravity of their decision. "Then let us decide together," she said. "Not as rivals, but as guardians of the cosmos. The stars brought us here for a reason. Let us honor their trust." As the council members began to deliberate, their voices no longer filled with anger, but with solemn resolve, Lyra felt a flicker of hope. The road ahead was fraught with pain and loss, but she knew they were closer to finding a solution. The barrier could hold back the darkness, but only if they stood together. The stars had called, and now it was time to answer not with fear, but with courage and unity. The fate of the cosmos depended on it. The tension in the celestial realm was palpable, the air thick with the weight of impending sacrifice. Solara's light dimmed slightly as she stepped forward, her voice steady but tinged with sorrow. "If a sacrifice must be made," she said, her gaze fixed on Lyra, "then let it be me. My essence is pure, untainted by the conflicts that divide the council. I can power the barrier and protect the cosmos." Lyra's heart ached at Solara's words. The celestial guardian had been her guide, her mentor, and her friend. To lose her would be to lose a part of herself. "No," Lyra said firmly, her voice cutting through the silence. "We've come too far to lose someone else. There has to be another way." The council turned to her, their luminous forms flickering with curiosity and doubt. "What do you propose?" Orion asked, his golden light pulsing faintly. Lyra hesitated, her mind racing. Then an idea struck her, a memory of the meteorite fragment she had sacrificed to enter the celestial realm. "The meteorite," she said, her voice growing stronger with conviction. "When I passed through the portal, the meteorite shattered, but its energy remained. What if we use it as a conduit? We could channel our combined energy through it, amplifying our strength without losing anyone." The council murmured among themselves, their light shifting with uncertainty. "It's a bold plan," the silver being said, their tone cautious, "but the risk is immense. If the conduit fails, the backlash could destroy us all. The risk is no greater than standing by and doing nothing," Lyra countered, her voice rising with passion. "We've faced impossible odds before, and we've always found a way. This isn't just about survival, it's about proving that we're stronger together, that we can overcome anything if we stand united." Solara's light brightened, her form shimmering with pride. "Lyra is right," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. the stars chose her for a reason. They saw in her the courage to challenge the impossible. If she believes this plan can work, then I stand with her. One by one, the council members nodded, their light merging into a radiant glow that filled the void. Orion stepped forward, his golden form pulsing with determination. "Then let us begin," he said. "The cosmos is counting on us." Lyra took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she retrieved the shards of the meteorite from her satchel. Their surface still glowed faintly, a reminder of the journey that had brought her here. As she placed the shards in the center of the council's gathering, the air around them crackled with energy. The council formed a circle around the fragments, their light intertwining as they prepared to channel their power. The process was delicate, each member of the council feeding a portion of their essence into the conduit. The meteorite shards began to glow brighter, their energy building with every passing moment. Lyra stood at the center, her hands outstretched, her heart pounding as she felt the raw power coursing through her. It was overwhelming, a force so immense it threatened to consume her, but she held on, her resolve unshaken. As the energy reached its peak, the shards erupted into a blinding light, their combined power surging outward to form a shimmering barrier around the celestial realm. The black hole's dark tendrils recoiled, its advance halted by the sheer force of the barrier. The cosmos seemed to hold its breath, the stars flickering faintly as the barrier held firm. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the council's light dimmed slightly, their energy drained but their spirits unbroken. The barrier held, its glow a testament to their unity and sacrifice. Lyra sank to her knees, her body trembling with exhaustion, but her heart filled with pride. They had done it. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Solara's light enveloped her, warm and reassuring. "You were right, Lyra," she said, her voice soft but filled with admiration. "The stars chose wisely." Lyra looked up at the shimmering barrier, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The journey had been long and fraught with peril, but it had been worth it. The cosmos was safe, for now, and as she gazed at the stars above, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same courage and determination. The stars had called, and she had answered, and in doing so, she had proven that even in the face of darkness, light could prevail. The air in the celestial realm crackled with raw energy as the Council of Stars began their ritual, their luminous forms intertwining like threads of light. At the center of it all, Lyra stood, her hands gripping the glowing shards of the meteorite, her entire body trembling under the weight of the cosmic forces surging through her. The meteorite pulsed with a rhythmic light, its surface alive with the combined essence of the celestial beings. It was a delicate balance. One wrong move, and the entire barrier could shatter before it even fully formed. Lyra's heart pounded as she felt the energy build, a tidal wave of power threatening to overwhelm her. Her connection to the stars, once a source of comfort and guidance, now felt like a double-edged sword. It allowed her to act as the anchor, stabilizing the chaotic forces, but it also made her the focal point of unimaginable strain. Sweat dripped down her brow as she struggled to maintain control, her muscles screaming in protest. Every fiber of her being was pushed to its limit, and for a moment, she wondered if she could hold on. The barrier began to take shape, a shimmering wall of light that stretched across the void, its surface rippling like water. The black hole's dark tendrils recoiled, its advance momentarily halted, but the victory came at a cost. Lyra's vision blurred, her breath coming in ragged gasps as the energy coursed through her. She could feel herself teetering on the edge of collapse, her body and mind stretched thin by the sheer magnitude of the power she was channeling. Solara's voice broke through the haze, barely audible over the roaring energy. Lyra, focus. You are the anchor, the conduit. If you falter, the barrier will fail. Her words were a lifeline, cutting through the chaos and grounding Lyra in the moment. She clenched her jaw, her fingers tightening around the meteorite shards. She couldn't give up, not now. The entire cosmos was counting on her. The Council's light intensified, their combined energy surging into the meteorite with renewed force. Lyra gritted her teeth, her legs threatening to buckle beneath her. The strain was unbearable, a searing pain that burned through every nerve, but she held on, her resolve unshaken. She thought of Orion, of her family, of the countless worlds that would be lost if she failed. Their faces flashed before her eyes, a reminder of what was at stake. The barrier grew stronger, its light now a brilliant shield that pushed back the darkness. The black hole roared in defiance, its tendrils lashing out in a desperate attempt to break through. But the barrier held, its surface shimmering with the strength of the celestial being's unity. Lyra's knees hit the ground, her strength nearly spent. Her vision darkened, her body on the verge of giving out. Yet, even as she teetered on the edge of collapse, she refused to let go. The stars had chosen her for a reason, and she would see this through, no matter the cost. As the barrier solidified, the Council's light began to dim, their energy drained but their spirits unbroken. The black hole's advance was halted, its dark tendrils retreating into the void. The celestial realm was safe for now. Lyra collapsed to the ground, her body trembling with exhaustion, her breath coming in shallow gasps. But as she lay there, her hand still clutching the meteorite shards, a faint smile touched her lips. They had done it. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Solara's light enveloped her, warm and reassuring. "You've done more than anyone could have asked of you," she said, her voice filled with pride. "The cosmos owes you a debt it can never repay." Lyra closed her eyes, her body aching but her heart full. The journey had been long and fraught with peril, but it had been worth it. The stars had called, and she had answered, and in doing so, she had proven that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, light could prevail. But as the celestial realm began to heal, Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The black hole had been stopped, but the battle was far from over, and whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same courage and determination. The stars were still calling, and she was ready to answer. The barrier's light shone like a beacon in the darkness, its shimmering surface holding back the black hole's relentless advance. But the victory was fleeting. The black hole, sensing the resistance, roared with a fury unlike anything Lyra had ever witnessed. Waves of destructive energy surged outward, crashing against the barrier with a force that sent shockwaves rippling through the celestial realm. The Council's light flickered, their forms trembling under the strain as cracks began to spiderweb across the barrier's surface. Lyra's heart raced as she felt the tremors reverberate through her very being. The meteorite shards in her hands grew hotter, their glow dimming as the barrier weakened. She glanced at Solara, whose light was now a faint flicker, and then at the council, their once radiant forms now dull and strained. "It's not enough," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "The barrier can't hold against this." Orion's voice broke through the turmoil, his tone grave but resolute. "The black hole is too powerful. It feeds on destruction, on chaos. If we only defend, it will consume us all." Lyra's mind raced, her thoughts a whirlwind of fear and determination. She stared into the heart of the black hole, its swirling darkness a void that seemed to pull at her very soul. And then it hit her, a realization so bold, so dangerous, that it sent a chill down her spine. "We can't hold it back from here," she said, her voice steady despite the storm around her. "We have to go inside. We have to disrupt it from within." The council turned to her, their light dimming further as the weight of her words sank in. Solara's voice, though weak, carried a note of urgency. "Lyra, no one has ever entered a black hole and returned. The forces inside there beyond comprehension. You'll be torn apart." Lyra met her gaze, her resolve hardening. "If we don't try, we lose everything. The barrier can't hold forever, but if I can get inside, if I can disrupt its core, maybe we can weaken it enough to stop it." The silence that followed was heavy, the council's light flickering with unease. Orion stepped forward, his golden form shimmering faintly. "You're right," he said, his voice low but firm. "But you won't go alone. We'll give you what strength we can. Together, we'll fight this darkness from within and without." Lyra nodded, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and determination. She turned to the barrier, her hands clutching the meteorite shards tightly. The cracks were spreading, the barrier's light fading with every passing moment. There was no time to hesitate. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the black hole's swirling maw. The council's light enveloped her, their energy surging through her as they prepared to send her into the heart of the void. As the barrier gave way, Lyra felt herself pulled into the black hole's grasp, the world around her dissolving into darkness. The last thing she saw was Solara's faint glow, a beacon of hope in the encroaching void. And then there was nothing. Nothing but the overwhelming pull of the black hole, its power threatening to tear her apart. But Lyra held on, her heart pounding with a fierce determination. The stars had called her for a reason, and she wasn't about to let them down. The battle was far from over, and she was ready to face the darkness wherever it led. Lyra stood at the edge of the void, the black hole's pull tugging at her like an insatiable force. Behind her, the council of stars shimmered faintly, their light dimmed by the strain of holding the barrier. Solara's form flickered weakly, her voice carrying a mixture of pride and sorrow. "You've already done more than anyone could ask of you," she said, her tone soft but resolute. "But this is beyond anything we've faced. Are you certain, Lyra?" Lyra turned to face them, her heart heavy but her resolve unshaken. "I have to try," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions within her. "If I don't, the darkness wins, and I can't let that happen. Not after everything we fought for." She glanced down at the star map in her hands, its patterns glowing faintly, a reminder of the journey that had brought her here. "This isn't just about me anymore. It's about all of us, about the cosmos itself." The council's light flickered in silent acknowledgement, their forms shifting as they prepared to channel what little energy they had left to aid her. Orion stepped forward, his golden light pulsing faintly. "We'll hold the barrier as long as we can," he said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "But once you enter, you'll be on your own. The black hole's forces are beyond our reach." Lyra nodded, her grip tightening on the meteorite shards. She took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the swirling maw of the black hole. The barrier behind her groaned under the strain, its cracks spreading like fractures in glass. There was no time left to hesitate. With one final glance at Solara and the council, she stepped forward, her heart pounding as the void engulfed her. The moment she crossed the threshold, the world around her dissolved into chaos. Time and space warped, twisting and folding in ways that defied comprehension. She felt as though she were being pulled in every direction at once, her body and mind stretched thin by the immense forces at play. The black hole's pull was relentless, its darkness pressing in on her from all sides. But amidst the chaos, she held onto the star map, its light a fragile beacon in the suffocating void. As she descended deeper, the darkness began to shift, its form coalescing into something tangible, something alive. A faint glow appeared in the distance, growing brighter as she drew closer. It was a star, but not as she had ever seen one. Its light was dim and flickering, its surface marred by cracks that pulsed with an eerie, malevolent energy. This was no ordinary star. It was a corrupted entity, consumed by its own despair and rage, the source of the black hole's power. Lyra's breath caught as she approached, the weight of the star's sorrow pressing down on her like a physical force. She could feel its pain, its anguish, radiating outward in waves. This wasn't just a force of destruction. It was a being, a consciousness trapped in its own torment. The star map in her hands pulsed faintly, its patterns shifting as if responding to the star's despair. Summoning every ounce of courage, Lyra reached out, her voice soft but steady. "I don't know what happened to you," she said, her words echoing in the void. "But I know what it's like to feel lost, to feel like the weight of the world is crushing you. You don't have to face this alone." The star's light flickered, its cracks glowing faintly as if in response. Lyra pressed on, her tone gentle but unwavering. "The darkness doesn't have to win. You can let go of the pain. You can find the light again, but you have to choose it. You have to want it." For a long moment, there was silence, the void around her still and heavy. Then, slowly, the star's light began to shift, its dim glow brightening ever so slightly. The cracks in its surface seemed to soften, their malevolent energy fading as the star's despair began to lift. Lyra felt a surge of hope, her heart pounding as she realized she was reaching it, that her compassion, her understanding, was making a difference. But the battle wasn't over yet. The black hole's pull remained strong, its darkness pressing in on them both. Lyra knew she had to act quickly. She raised the star map, its patterns glowing brighter as she channeled her own energy into it. "Let me help you," she said, her voice firm now, filled with determination. "Together we can stop this. We can bring the light back." The star's light flared, its glow intensifying as it began to respond to her plea. The darkness around them wavered, its grip loosening as the star's despair gave way to hope. Lyra felt a surge of energy, a connection between her and the star that was deeper than anything she had ever experienced. It was as if they were one, their combined strength a force that could push back the void itself. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the black hole's hold shattered. The darkness receded, its tendrils dissolving into nothingness as the star's light filled the void. Lyra felt herself being pulled back, the warped space around her unraveling as the cosmos began to heal. The last thing she saw before the light consumed her was the star, its surface whole and radiant once more, its light a beacon of hope in the endless expanse. As she emerged from the black hole, the celestial realm came into view, its stars shining brighter than ever. The barrier was gone, but so was the darkness. The council's light flickered weakly, their forms dim but alive, and there, at the center of it all, was Solara, her light glowing with a warmth that filled Lyra's heart. "You did it," Solara said, her voice filled with awe and gratitude. "You brought the light back." Lyra smiled faintly, her body trembling with exhaustion, but her spirit unbroken. The journey had been long and fraught with peril, but it had been worth it. The stars had called, and she had answered, and in doing so, she had proven that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, light could prevail. But as she gazed at the shimmering expanse before her, she knew this was only the beginning. The cosmos was vast, its mysteries endless, and whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them. With courage, with compassion, and with the unwavering belief that even the darkest void could be filled with light. The corrupted star's light surged, its once fractured surface now glowing with a brilliance that pushed back the suffocating darkness. The black hole, once an unstoppable force of destruction, began to collapse in on itself, its malevolent energy unraveling into nothingness. Lyra felt the void shift around her, the oppressive pull of the black hole weakening as the star's light grew stronger. With a final, blinding flash, the darkness shattered, and Lyra was hurled back into the celestial realm, her body battered but her spirit unbroken. She landed softly amidst the shimmering expanse of the celestial realm, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The barrier, now steady and radiant, stood firm, its light a testament to the Council's unity and sacrifice. The stars above pulsed faintly, their light warm and reassuring, as if welcoming her back. Solara's form materialized beside her, her light flickering with relief and pride. "You did it, Lyra," she said, her voice soft but filled with awe. "You saved us all." The council of stars gathered around her, their luminous forms glowing with a newfound brightness. Orion stepped forward, his golden light shimmering with gratitude. "You've done what no one else could," he said, his tone filled with reverence. "You faced the darkness and brought back the light. The cosmos owes you a debt it can never repay." Lyra's heart swelled with emotion, but she shook her head, her voice humble yet firm. "I didn't do this alone," she said, her gaze sweeping over the council and Solara. "We all played a part. The barrier, the sacrifice, the unity. It was all of us together that made this possible. I just followed the path the stars laid out for me." The council's light pulsed in acknowledgement, their forms shifting with a sense of renewed purpose. The corrupted star, now healed and whole, began to drift upward, its light merging with the celestial realm's radiance. Its journey was complete, its despair transformed into hope, and its light a beacon for all who would come after. The realm itself seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the air humming with a sense of peace that had been absent for far too long. As the celebration began, the council honored Lyra as a hero, their light intertwining to create a crown of starlight that hovered above her head. It was a symbol of their gratitude, a mark of the legacy she had earned. But Lyra's thoughts were elsewhere. She gazed out at the shimmering expanse, her mind filled with the memories of her journey, the trials, the sacrifices, the moments of doubt and triumph. She had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, but she knew she wasn't the same person who had first followed the star's call. Solara's light enveloped her, warm and reassuring. "You've changed, Lyra," she said, her voice tinged with a quiet understanding. "The stars chose you for a reason, and you've proven them right, but the journey isn't over. The cosmos is vast, and its mysteries are endless. You've only just begun to uncover them." Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The journey had changed her, not just in the way she saw the stars, but in the way she saw herself. She had discovered a strength she never knew she had, a resilience that had carried her through the darkest moments. And as she stood there, surrounded by the light of the celestial realm, she felt a sense of peace, not just for what she had accomplished, but for the path that still lay ahead. The council's light dimmed slightly as they dispersed, their forms fading into the shimmering expanse. Solara lingered for a moment, her light flickering with a quiet pride. "Rest now, Lyra," she said softly. "You've earned it. But know this, the stars will always guide you, and you will never walk alone." As Solara's light faded, Lyra stood alone in the celestial realm, her heart full and her spirit unshaken. The journey had been long and fraught with peril, but it had been worth it. The stars had called, and she had answered, and as she gazed out at the endless expanse, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same courage, the same determination, and the same belief in the power of light. The cosmos was vast, its mysteries endless, and Lyra was ready to explore them all. The journey back to Luminara felt like a dream, the familiar hills and rolling meadows glowing under the soft light of the setting sun. Lyra walked the path she had taken so many times before, but now every step felt different. The stars above seemed closer, their light brighter, as if they were welcoming her home. The village came into view, its quaint cottages and winding streets unchanged, yet everything felt new to her. She had left as a curious astronomer with a fragment of a meteorite. She returned as a guardian of the cosmos, her heart heavy with the weight of what she had seen and done. Orion was the first to see her. He stood at the edge of the village, his face pale, but his eyes filled with relief. His wound had healed, though the weariness in his posture spoke of the toll it had taken. When their eyes met, he smiled a slow, genuine smile that warmed her heart. "Lyra," he said, his voice rough but tender, "you came back." She ran to him, her arms wrapping around him as if to anchor herself to the world she had left behind. "I told you I would," she whispered, her voice muffled against his shoulder. For a moment, they stood there, the silence between them filled with all the words they didn't need to say. He had doubted her, feared for her, but now he could see the change in her, the quiet strength, the unshakable resolve. She was still Lyra, but she was no longer the same. Word of her return spread quickly, and soon the entire village gathered in the square, their faces a mix of curiosity and awe. Her family pushed through the crowd, her mother's hands trembling as she reached for her daughter. "Lyra," she breathed, her voice choked with emotion. "We thought we'd lost you." Lyra hugged her tightly, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm here," she said softly. "And I have so much to tell you." That evening, beneath the star-strewn sky, Lyra sat by the fire with Orion, her family, and the villagers. She told them everything: the celestial realm, the council of stars, the black hole, and the corrupted star she had saved. Her words painted a picture of a universe far grander and more mysterious than they had ever imagined. She spoke of the beauty of the cosmos, the dangers that lurked within it, and the courage it took to face them. But she also spoke of hope, of the power of unity, of compassion, of light in the face of darkness. The villagers listened in rapt silence, their eyes wide with wonder. For many, the stars had always been distant, untouchable, but Lyra's story brought them closer. She saw it in their faces, the spark of curiosity, the flicker of courage. She had brought back more than just a tale. She had brought back a sense of possibility, a reminder that the universe was not something to fear, but something to explore. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Orion leaned closer to her, his voice low. "You've changed them," he said, his gaze sweeping over the villagers. "You've given them something they didn't even know they needed." Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes fixed on the stars. "The stars called to me, Orion," she said. "And now they're calling to all of us. We just have to listen." The days that followed were filled with a quiet sense of renewal. Lyra returned to her old life, but it was impossible to ignore the ways she had changed. She carried the wisdom of the cosmos within her, a quiet strength that guided her every step. She spent her nights gazing at the stars, not just as an astronomer, but as someone who had walked among them. And though she no longer held the meteorite fragment, she felt its presence in the patterns of the night sky, in the whispers of the wind, in the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. But Lyra's journey was far from over. The stars had called her once, and she knew they would call again. The cosmos was vast, its mysteries endless, and she was ready to explore them all. For now, though, she was content to stand beneath the stars, her heart full and her spirit unshaken, knowing that she had brought a piece of the heavens back to Luminara. And in doing so, she had reminded everyone that even the smallest of lights could shine brightly in the darkest of skies. Lyra stood at the edge of the village, her gaze lifted to the night sky. The stars above glittered with a brilliance she had never noticed before, their patterns now etched with meaning only she could fully understand. Among them, new constellations shimmered, twisted, and radiant, born from the trials she had faced and the light she had restored. Each star seemed to tell a story, a fragment of the journey that had changed her forever. She traced the lines of these celestial formations with her eyes, feeling a deep connection to the cosmos she had fought so hard to protect. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of pine and the distant hum of the village settling into the evening. Behind her, the glow of firelight flickered, casting warm shadows that danced across the ground. But Lyra's thoughts were far away, drifting among the stars. She thought of Orion, his steady presence and quiet wisdom, and of Solara, whose light had guided her through the darkest moments. She remembered the Council of Stars, their unity forged in the face of impossible odds, and the corrupted star she had saved. its light now a beacon of hope in the celestial realm. Each memory was a thread woven into the tapestry of her journey. As she stood there, a profound sense of gratitude washed over her. The sacrifices made by her, by the council, by the celestial beings who had entrusted her with their light, were not in vain. They had shaped her, tested her, and ultimately revealed the strength she carried within. The stars had called to her, not because she was ready, but because they believed she could become ready. And she had. The path had been fraught with peril, but it had also been filled with wonder, with moments of awe and connection that transcended the boundaries of the known universe. Lyra's hand instinctively reached for the place where the meteorite fragment had once rested in her satchel. Though it was gone, its energy lingered in the patterns of the night sky, in the constellations that now bore its mark. She smiled faintly, her heart swelling with a quiet pride. The cosmos was vast, its mysteries endless, and she had only begun to uncover its secrets. But for now, she was content to stand beneath the stars, her spirit unshaken and her heart full. The village behind her was quiet, its people now dreaming of the stories she had brought back, of celestial realms and cosmic battles, of unity and light triumphing over darkness. She had given them more than just a tale. She had given them a glimpse of something greater, a reminder that the universe was not something to fear, but something to embrace. And as she gazed at the stars, she knew that the journey was far from over. The stars would always call to her, their whispers a constant reminder of the endless possibilities that lay ahead. With a final glance at the heavens, Lyra turned and walked back toward the village, her footsteps light and her heart steady. The night was still, the world around her peaceful, but her mind was already alight with thoughts of the future. There were other realms to explore, other mysteries to unravel, and she was ready to face them all. The stars had chosen her, and she had answered. And as she stepped into the warm glow of the firelight, she carried with her the quiet certainty that no matter where the stars led her next, she would walk that path with courage, with compassion, and with the unshakable belief that even the darkest void could be filled with light. The cosmos was vast, and Lyra's journey had only just begun.